Well, I'm letting everyone get settled in here virtually. I see there's still a few connecting to audio, so we're going to let everybody get settled in before we get started. I just want to welcome everyone to today's behavioral health webinar. My name is Steve Steiny. I'm one of the managers here at the National American Indian Alaska Native HTC. I'm broadcasting to you live from the University of Iowa campus. We've got a fantastic speaker today. I also have on the call my colleague, Jeff Ledolter. He'll be on initially, sort of assisting us. If anyone has any difficulties technology-wise or is having trouble managing their Zoom features, Jeff should be able to assist you. We're gonna go through a few introductory slides. I hope this broadcast finds you well. So good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you're watching this from. It's nice to see a few familiar names and some familiar faces on. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We really are in for a treat. We've got a great speaker today. Today's behavioral health webinar is entitled Finding and Working with Self Through Cultural Ways of Crafting. I am working with Teresa on this and reviewing this presentation. I learned so much just talking with her about some of the connection between culture and crafting. And so we're really in for a very, very good broadcast today. So I'm going to go through a few slides and then I'm going to turn the floor over to our speaker today. Thank you so much for being here. This event is brought to you by the National American Indian Alaska Native Addiction Technology Transfer Center, which is located, as I mentioned, at the University of Iowa. We are part of a national HTC network made up of 10 regional centers, a National Hispanic Latino Center, and the coordinating office located at the University of Missouri. This project is supported and funded by SAMHSA. However, the content is developed by the presenter, and the opinions expressed do not necessarily reflect the views or policies of SAMHSA, HHS, or the American Indian Alaska Native HTC. Following today's event, we will send a follow-up email. This will include links to today's presentation slides, and we are recording this event for later viewing on our YouTube Native Center for Behavioral Health archive channel. You'll also be eligible to receive 1.5 CEUs, which you can request at the time you receive the follow-up email. Attached to this email will also be a very short survey. This survey is important to our center and our funders to ensure that we're able to continue to provide events such as this. Of course, your participation is voluntary, but we would really appreciate you taking a few minutes to fill out this short survey. You can skip any questions you do not want to answer, and all responses will be kept confidential and not linked to you in any way. If you have any questions about this survey, please reach out to myself here at our center, and I will post my email in the chat box, but it should also be attached to the follow-up email so you can reach out to us with any questions you have. I know we're gathered here today virtually, but I want to take the time to acknowledge the land and pay respects to the indigenous nations whose homelands were forcibly taken and inhabited. Please take a moment to read this land acknowledgement, which was created by 3 members of our team, Ella and Keely Driscoll and Sean Bear. Thank you. Well, without further ado, I want to introduce today's speaker. Today we have Teresa Subrill. She has a vast background due to traditional elders coming to her for various needs, concerns, and issues over the span of her adult life. She has also an extensive background and has worked in many different fields, including the criminal justice and psychology field. As a spiritual and cultural woman, she has learned that the solutions are in our culture. I'm so happy to have her here with us today, and she has some really great information to share, and we're hoping to even have a little time for questions and comments and maybe a little discussion at the end of today's presentation. Really happy to have her here. I'll let her complete and finish her introduction to you all. You can see there in her picture, I've also added a picture of some cordage that she has recently been working on, and wanted to just share that because I said, we got to get this in the PowerPoint. So it's really, it's just a small sampling of some of the different crafts that Teresa is doing, probably as we speak. She's always got something going. So I want to turn the floor over to her. Before I do, just to remind everyone, you're currently muted. Please use the chat box feature to make comments or ask questions that you may have. And we'll try and circle back to those and at the end and try and address some of those questions or comments that you have. So just kind of keep that in mind, and you can certainly unmute and ask your questions as well. So we're hoping to have some time at the end. Without further ado, I want to turn the floor over now. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, Teresa, so I'll give you a minute to get your slides up. But thank you so much for being here, and I want to thank everyone else for joining us today.
I am Teresa Subrill, and I am a Menominee and Anishinaabe. Menominee on my mom's side, Anishinaabe on my dad's. I go Anishinaabe ways. And I'm trying to find my PowerPoint here. I have most of my life and back and forth to Canada. My Anishinaabe side is on Canada, and I have worked all over, like he said, in different venues and areas, and really paid attention to spirit is how I first would learn. And then the elders would see the teachings that were coming, and then further through education. And it would just, I'd find how it coincided with our teachings. And the solutions are definitely in our culture. I have found that through everything and applying it, living it, and being stuck up against the wall, learning you have to do this, and it works. Steve, I'm not able to put it up on screen share. I X'd it out. Do you see it there?
Just go down to your green button there.
I did.
And you should be able to.
Advanced,
Oh, you know why?
maybe?
You know why? Because I need to click that button now. Now give it a shot.
Okay.
Now you're clear that you've got clearance from the tower to share your screen.
But it's not showing up the PowerPoint for this.
Oh.
Just the modules. Yeah.
Well, you have to open the PowerPoint on your laptop, and then you'll.
Oh, I see.
And then you'll have the option to choose which, and then remember to click the share audio button.
There it is.
Yeah.
Okay. So are you able to see that?
It's coming here. Where it says you started. Yes, there it is. And we have, did you click the share audio button too? So when we get to the little video piece, they'll be able to hear it.
Oh, share audio. New share.
Yeah, you'll have to close this and do that before you choose your screen.
Stop sharing.
Yeah. So just go back down to your screen share, and then there'll be a little
sound
box. Yes, share sound. Yeah, because I want these guys to be able to hear.
There you go.
To hear that little video excerpt that you.
And then this one, just click the notes button.
Yeah, go ahead and click that little icon that's right before the Zoom bar there. I mean the Zoom screen bar. Just go over the one that looks like it has a little notch at the bottom. Just go all the way over. Yep, that one. That's the one, eh?
Yeah. Oh, there we go.
Yes, that's great.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
We got it. Thanks for your
We
patience,
got it.
everyone. We got it. Teamwork.
This is my first time trying to do this myself. So,
You're doing great. I'm going to mute now. So the floor is
okay.
yours, Steve. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Let me slide this camera over. So in cultural ways, everyone has a craft. Through crafting, the individual, family, or group is to stay grounded in a good way. So we were to stay checking our thoughts, checking our heart, checking spirit, and making sure you're keeping pure of, not bringing your intents in. We were always praying for, thinking of whatever it is you're making or doing. So to stay in this good way, and you'll catch yourself through it, losing connection to that. So you find yourselves through that, and you develop your relationship and yourself and others that you're working with to become more at peace with your place in the world and the world around you. The lessons you learn about yourself and tools you develop becomes one of their strongholds when they're working on this, or you are working on this. You really learn a lot, and we'll go on into that here. Points I noticed today is what is a cultural craft? How to help an individual or group find their craft through motivational interviewing style, and how one can learn their craft if no one is teaching it, working with individual or groups to learn to recognize where their thoughts go, how to reground self through practice while crafting, and how to apply in other life aspects lessons from their craft, recognizing the things that keeps reoccurring they may need addressed, and healing as they learn to apply the lessons from their craft and the counsels shared with them. Let's see if I can move this a little bit. So what is a craft? A craft is any skill that not everyone has a calling or a knack for. Just some of the crafts could be hunting, fishing, trapping, tool making, gardening, harvesting, processing, preserving, cooking, tools or container making, games, a runner, a story keeper, a tool maker, a storyteller, historian, teacher, counselor, mentor. As you can see, the list goes on, and you guys are welcome to a copy of this presentation at the end. There's all sorts of aspects to each craft, which we'll share a little bit later. So if you're disabled, arthritis in your hands, and even though it calls to you, but you're unable to do all the aspects to it, there's other parts that you can do and still be involved in that craft. So when you're working with folks, they'll often say, I don't even know what my craft is. I don't know how to find it, is the typical responses. And, you know, their skill, and their gift, some will call it. So you ask them, what is it they wonder about in their culture? What the old ones did, what it looked like, what it sounded like, felt like, smelt like, and what they could see themselves, what part of it do they see themselves in it? If anything from your culture that you'd be excited or look forward to. So if they knew they could do this on their day off or after school or work, in the evenings, first thing in the morning, just to be a part of it, and it would make you excited. I get to go do this today. What parts of the culture would they like to see in their home or their room? So to be surrounded by and have that in their space. There's some of the ideas is like the lacrosse stick or the gear or basket making materials or your traditional food in your cart. These are all part of your craft. Our culture is, as they say, is a way of life. And what is life if it isn't hunting, fishing, gathering, harvesting, eating, making, and dreaming, and So that is in our perspectives on those things, how we went about it. So are you good with your hands? Do you like to be outdoors? Do you like more hunting or fishing or basket making or gardening or cooking? Or are you more into the storytelling? So to try to help them find that, but to frame that around what they call motivational interviewing today. But our elders, in a way, how they would do it was about the same. But it's to trick the person into finding that answer for themselves without planting it in their head. They really need to be able to know this is for them, not somebody fed it to them. And that is so important. And then next, then how to support that, how to help them get that, because oftentimes there isn't that in the communities going on. Here's some crafts. And if you look at these pictures here, like the cordage in the beginning, that cord, that rope, that's a huge aspect. We used rope for everything, including making bags, making bowls, but also nuts, drying medicines on, and things like that, traps. The Warrior Society used them as well. But here, if you want to go hunting through the canoes, what part of this craft is yours in the picture? Would it be the canoe? Would it be making the bow and arrows? Would it be making the quiver that the arrows are in? Spear fishing, would it be making that boat, making the spear, or doing the fishing, or all of the above? And here, the drying and the tanning of the hides, to make that frame, to gather the materials to make the frame. Some people are great at gathering the materials, cleaning and sorting them. And that's what they really enjoy, sitting with that and not the whole process, the whole cycle of it. They don't want to make the frame. Some people are those frame makers. And then there's the others who just want to tan that hide. So they don't have to learn the whole. They can come together and say, hey, I need a frame maker for this because this is what it needs to be like, as I need to make this so I can tan a hide. This here is a quill basket, so the porcupine quills. They can say, I don't have a porcupine. You often see them on the road dead. Unfortunately, you can buy them online. This basket here, you can see it looks like sweetgrass. It was wrapped around it, and then it was used with birch bark, and you punch the holes. They would need it all. So there's all different aspects to this. You can have a gather or bring that bark and the sweetgrass, the medicine person who goes to those plants, Mother Earth's hair, a hunter trapper. You can get the quills from, or you can do this all on your own. And God knows, I know I do it. Here's tools, just some, and so to come up in our ways. Also, we had our own unique design with everything, and you could tell whose work was what, because always you put your unique element to it. So to allow yourself to open up, work with spirit and dream and see the vision and work with what you're working with. Whatever you're working with will tell you what it wants to be. It'll show you. So to learn to work with it and not force what you envision. But start with that vision and help and merge the two together. So a tool maker is another. And then here you'll see, this is wild racing. So you need the racing sticks, you need the canoe, there's the process of harvesting the rice, and then there's the process of cleaning the rice and all of that. There's the Warrior Society. They had a lot of sports, our warriors, and that was for training purposes, for coming together, brotherhood purposes, for bonding, and then the tools that they need. There's ceremony, song, dance behind each and every one of these crafts, their creation story, their names in the language. So to learn those different and find those different parts, you're able to find them. And I'll give you some examples later on and how you can, if it's not easily accessible in your community. So here I have a picture, and you'll see the basket, the gardening, the harvesting, the processing of the food, the cooking, how many different crafts alone is in this one aspect of this picture. So somebody might think gardening isn't it for me, but they really would have liked the harvesting portion of it, or they would have really liked the seeding portion of it, or the basket making for the people portion, or the drying of the seeds and seed collection. Many indigenous ways our people learned first the story of their craft. They knew its name in the language, the craft's creation story, and seeked other stories their craft was in or a part of. They knew the song of the craft or songs. So often we would be telling the story in the beginning as we knew that time was coming, and to be working with whatever it is, even if it was a game like lacrosse or snowshoe racing. And we started with those stories. It tends to connect us with that spirit and bring it to life. We're putting down our offering, whether it's Naknama, Asima, Kinnikinnick, tobacco. We're putting down that offering and we're talking to those spirits. We're getting ourselves ready to be in a good way in mind, body, and spirit. But to be in a good way in body, that also means we need to rest properly. We need to be eating properly. We need to be sober. They learned its birth and death, or birth and rebirth cycles, as everything has. When it's at its prime or its development, and what it has during those cycles to give and not to give yet. So to take the time to sit with that, whether it's a sport, whether it's hunting, whether it's fishing, gathering, whether it's the warrior society, the storytelling, the history, to look at its changes and its development and to get to know it. They learn how to care throughout the process for their craft, all in these stages of birth through development of one's craft cycles. The lessons were interchangeable with self, family, and the world in general. So to start that motivational interviewing with them, once they start working on their craft and thinking about how does that lesson you got in what you were doing that they start sharing with you apply to this or that in life, and kind of get them to think about different aspects, whether it's work, relationships, school, the way they look at themselves, things like that. When one's cultural craft is lost, how do you find it? And that often seems to be a problem today. Too many of our communities don't have it, or it's been changed, or it's been merged with another. So we start off in what some call prayer, putting your offerings down and letting spirit know, I'm looking for this. I really would love this, and I want to know about this. Talking self, or taking some of the places that would occur, like the lake, the woods, the field, the river, the marsh, whether it was where our warriors would have been training, where the storytelling would have went on, things like that. Take yourself to those places. Go and set out. Go and envision it. Give offerings in that space. Connect and be with. If nothing comes to them, just be open to daydream, to picture it, tell them, and to look and see what tribal historical preservation might have. They might have stories on it, photos of the museum might be containing a piece or element to some of your elders or olders might know to remember any aspect of the story and how to do it. And in our 7th generation time, we know that the people are going to be looking to the young ones, that a lot of the elders don't know because of what they went through. They know much, but they have pieces and parts we need to decipher what was and reconnect those dots because of trauma. So let them do that critical thinking. Question things is good, and to draw or write out their thoughts about it and their vision about it, their questions about it, even their struggle about it. Online, you can find on YouTube's, Google searches, but seek the historical accuracy to find the real inspiration. List the basics needed. So sit down with them and help them figure out what is it you might need for your craft, so they can start gathering their bundle. And a lot of it, make sure, because it starts with self and it starts within. Are they caring for self? How are we taking care of our home? Are we in a healthy environment? Are we cleaning it, decluttering it? Are we, what kind of people do we have in our circles? So what are we connecting to? And then make that bundle and make it sacred. Our life walk is sacred. This is ceremony. So what's the best time to be in it? Time one can learn. So help them map out and figure, because you hear, oh, I'm too busy, or this is always going on. Well, we all have a quiet moment, even in war zones. And so help them find that. Help them find, you know what, even if you're only getting this much a month, it's a start. And you'll see them make room in their life as they get a taste. and it begins to digest and become a part of them and come to life. So when one can gather, so once they start being able to have that bundle and become a part of it, when can they gather that, or when did those games go on, or those stories be told? Make time for taking in the lessons. So to have that time with them and show them how to have this time to reflect, to see the lessons. And that's the biggest gift that we get from the Creator, is those lessons in it. It's blessings within blessings. So throughout learning and doing, visit the places often. This would have been go back to these places and know that it could be again, if it isn't currently in your community or area. If in the city, visit in your daydreams or on online photos of. I had to do that in the city myself, looking at pictures of the woods and just taking myself there that way when I couldn't physically drive and go there. And I could still vision, I could still see, I could still create and get everything ready. So when I could be in those spaces, I had it. And continue to feast or put out your offerings throughout the process. All of this is teaching things with them, like reconnecting with self. When all seems lost, it still can be. It's not all completely gone. Don't give up. Focus, dreaming and planning, and the fruits and doing actions. And then also reconnection with our culture and our ancestors. Learning to hear and catch self while crafting culturally, we did only in the times guided by spirit. So long as spirit's nudging you, they're feeling it. If they're not, how can they develop that? Work with them on developing, being able to connect with it. How do I push this aside so I can feel this? All things began with ceremony and ended in the energy through where our hearts are, minds, thoughts, and spirit carried and was seen and felt in the craft. So when somebody gifted you something or you got to see their craft, you could kind of feel where they were at in that, and you can pick it up looking at it, and you can see it while they're working with it too. So some would see as good or bad medicine, that energy going into it. This did not mean the individual or group had or was of bad medicine. It just meant they were carrying something with them that led the ways in their steps. These things must be addressed. If could not be, to learn to put aside while and tend to as soon as possible. So to help them learn, okay, you're feeling anxious about this, depressed about that, this keeps pulling your thoughts away. So this is how we address that. This is how we take stock in things, and we take a little walk and we check ourselves in our life, and we look at, okay, this is my plan of action on those issues. And now I can come back and let it go and work on this. The elders and one's family or loved ones was always an observation of the world around them. Crafting will show as one will find themselves having a hard time with, struggling, things breaking, being woven too tightly, and so forth. Can observe where their eyes are going off into, or how they move about, if at peace or in a heavy place. Observe them or yourself as you're working on your craft, out in those spaces, whatever process you're in of the crafting, even if it's envisioning, and catch yourself, or if you're doing it with an individual or group, keep observing them. You'll notice these kind of things. So you'll know what kind of dialect to begin with. You're going to see what tools they need from you on how to deal with that, because it will. Your craft does not want to be pulled angry or with anxiety, or you got to be connected with just it, and it flows. It takes learning. There's learning curve, mind you, but it will flow. Be your own elder and catch yourself. So they're learning empowerment through making self accountable, where they can now catch self and change the direction and therefore outcome. Things to notice with the individual, like I was saying, learning their physical and mental signs of losing control or self in their movements. So I'm sure many of you know or have experienced yourself, your jaw clenches up, or tensing up, or holding of their breaths, or rapid breathing, legs shaking. They kind of get this. So becoming short fused, this just isn't working, or angry and frustrated, the negative self-talk. So where that conversation is going and heading, feeling overwhelmed and sadness, or the sexual talk and joking is another deflection. And it's another sign of what's going on here. Thoughts of using drugs, alcohol, eating comfort foods or junk foods, or getting very tired out of the blue. So the list goes on here. I think you guys kind of get the gist of that, but to observe it and to help them learn to catch themselves in that. Have a talk with them on the individual or group, and if they can share other tales or signs that they notice later or throughout their crafting stages, with you or with the group if they're comfortable. Each community, as you know, sociologically has their own unique traits in some kind of way that they do something. So, in your area, to learn that as well. Not everything is in the textbook, or that we have personally experienced. So how to work through that once they start getting to that place, and what is it that's bringing this up. So now you're able to see these underlying issues that's going on and start working with them through it. Suggestions on regrounding self and how to apply it in other settings. So how to take your craft and also do this in life, whether it's in your parenting or your self-care, getting ready in the morning, your self-talk, or in your relationships at work or school, or with your neighbors, or as sisters in communities and brothers, with your elders. So how to suggest, just some suggestions, but keep a notebook nearby to log down where their thoughts went each time on the project, and the prayer of who and what for, purpose and intent for the craft. So good, bad, or indifferent, help get their focus there. We all have different learning curves, whether it's, auditory, visual, hands-on. So some of these things like writing down might be good for them. Some of them might be audio, say it in a recorder, hear back to self, okay, this is what I'm doing today. And then now I'm going to smudge. Now I'm going to get in the zone, as some people call it. And then to get up and walk away for a moment, get some fresh air, stretching where their body holds their tension or worry. So that by then, hopefully they're catching those places and releasing it to spirit. Get a good drink of water. Water is life. I know that's cliche, but it comes from a serious truth. It is cleansing. Get a good drink of water and tell them to remind themselves of that, to talk to that water. Help cleanse me, help bring this to life, and make that prayer with that water as they're drinking it. Other self-care, that self-talk. Okay, do I have dinner planned? Do I need to use the bathroom? Because sometimes you really get into your craft and you hold it. If you ever notice, and ever in the craft. Any other tasks that would see to life being tended to, so they can get back into the craft without feeling self being pulled elsewhere. Is my kids picked up? Are they at home? Are they good? All that kind of stuff. Smudging and prayers. These things to ask them to do when they're at home working on their craft, not just with you. So to take this skill at home. So it's kind of cognitive therapy in that way, where it's a continuance and it's coming into other aspects of their life. And then later, as they're working through their craft, working with this skill, did you try that when this happened and you got stressed out? Were you able to walk away for a moment? Were you able to get that drink of water? Were you able to release and use that skill in these other aspects? If it's a family member, a friend that's calling or texting, if it's not of great importance, help them learn healthy boundaries. If you need to let them know, hey, this is my me time, and I'll get back to you guys then, unless it's an emergency. If it's an emergency, it's where I'm at, show up. But if it's not, this is my me time. And so put that phone down, tell them turn the volumes off if they gotta. So to learn these healthy boundaries, there's so much dysfunction in Indian countries, so much caretaking going on, and don't feel comfortable with saying no. Saying it's me time. Me time is okay, and it's very important. Having an individual or group share privately with the facilitator the issues that take thought or emotions away. So if they don't want to share with the group, ask, will they come to you at a private time? Make a space for those private time moments where they can come and share with you that. It might be a really hard issue that's been deep seated and is starting to come to surface. So be ready for that. And as they work through, more stuff might start to release. So if common threads in the group that you're noticing that's popping up, then you have a great teaching point discussion for your next group with them on whatever teaching it is they're needing, that they're stumbling on, whatever tool in life to share with them. So again, each community has some unique aspects to it. We're pretty textbook across the board, but each community has something so unique, good, bad, and indifferent. So let them teach you too. You know, I've learned so much from the different communities, great stuff, and then bad things too. But through that, we find solutions. We find what needs to be. So once individual or group notices how where their thoughts and things are going away, again, what happens, you know, in other aspects of their life when this is happening. So again, how does it impact it? Where's the self being carried off to when they're working on this craft? So when they're home doing it, when they're out doing it, their thoughts might get carried away in this place when they're with you. I mean, when they're out in the land, it gets taken to this other place. When they're home doing it, now it's taken to this other place. And then how did working with the tools they've been learning work? Were they effective in those different spaces and environments? If not, what kind of tools are they going to need then at that point to get through it out in those spaces? Talk on ways individuals or group can apply regrounding their self to other aspects of their life. So basically that's what it would be helping them to do, to reground themselves, take control of themselves. And as my dad would say, not be acting too human, letting your emotions carrying you away. Some of the things that they're learning throughout this is being able to be present in the moment, connection to their environment and the world around them, making do with what they have. Indian country oftentimes notices other people having and seeing that as a success and thinking somehow it was given. I've been a single mom with no budget, disabled kids, growing up poor myself, coming into I don't know how many different communities in provinces and states is next. That is, I have found the biggest blessing ever is to start humble and stay humble. You can really make do. In Indian country has what my dad would call ingenuity, and so apply that there, and show them how. A little kid us had the biggest dream. Somebody could tell you when you were a kid, you could not do that. This was impossible. And you found a way to make do with some scraps, boards, whatever out of the garbage, and you did it. You rocked it. You made it be successful. So as a child, you already learned that with next to nothing, you can do this. So it's budget friendly, especially when it's coming from the earth. You know, it's getting out there. So notice the changes and having a part in their changes. So have them notice it and share with you, hey, I noticed that, you know, I'm not getting stressed out as much, or my thoughts aren't getting carried away as much. I've been resting better. All these different kind of things that, you know, anxiety, depression, fear, PTSD, et cetera, that we struggle with in Indian country, addiction, all these things, how much it impacts our whole life, you know, every step of our life, our memory trying to grocery shop, things like that are being short with things and giving up easy. So am I going, hey, I could do this, and trying new things. And so learning to go with the flow of natural life, we see that with the seasons, we see that with the birth, the death, and the rebirth in our ways, no matter what the craft is. When is it the season for their craft? They learn to merge their life with becoming a part of life that fits the true them, vision and acceptance of vision, not always being how you wished. Gratitude for things turn out even when not as planned, becoming open to the unexpected, and to work with self individually and together. So they're going to learn some focus, and attention span becomes a given. They're beginning to see what is taking their ability to be present in their life and moments now. So learning to recognize and deal with dysfunction and trauma, they're how to take their moments back so that thought, emotion, or spirit does not carry them away. Calm and steady breaths, learning to recognize anxiety, frustration, depression, anger, and so on. And take control as it develops. How to let go what is temporarily or completely out of their control, and reconnect with spirit. And then you can reapproach it. So how to disengage, reapproach in a good way, healthy way. How to do self-care, meantime, healthy boundaries, healthy responses, and still manage family and friends and the dance of life. Learning what they need help with and resources. And this list here kind of goes on for you. Here's some of the sharing lessons. You can ask the individual or group if they are comfortable to share with their positive noticeable changes, like I had said, from the lessons they've been receiving, from physical health, mental health, spiritual growth, confidence, relationship dynamics, work relations, and so on. Ask for the individual or group if they'd share the unexpected bad responses. So you might give them some healthy boundary skills and responses to use. And Indian country, I know, can come up with some responses that you were not ready for. So if they share that with you, you better believe they're not the only one that's hearing that. So I ask them to let me know these unique things we didn't think of, so you can help them through that. So, and so, yeah, it's definitely ask them to share. And so how we learn best. Genetically, like I said earlier, most people who are auditory are visual, hands-on. But for us as Indigenous people, most of us are wired to learn through oral tradition first, and based on the lands, outdoors and talk in circles, one-on-one, group settings. But after we had the stories, we kind of had watched, and we'd be getting the stories while we're watching. And then we would get hands-on. And so this is our best way of learning, and to remind is sometimes we didn't even know that ourselves about ourselves. So to go, it's okay not to have to know all my craft, get hands-on right away, just to get into the stories and take all the time with it and get to sit with it and observe it, envision it. So if you can't watch somebody doing it, you can envision it. We can take this back. I've done it with everything I'm trying to learn, like the jack of all trades, every little craft I can, to bring back and show our old ones that we're still here. We can figure this out, and they do come in and help. I know that's true. What has become many Indigenous people's teachers, or should be some of their best teachers, have become lessons of dysfunction. So a lot of our teachers are pretty dysfunctional today, and we know that. So my dad one time shared a story with me, and it sounded like this elder that had been 120 years old. It was so wise. It was the most greatest in-depth teaching. He phoned me up from Ontario, and he goes, guess how old this elder was? And I was like, 120. And he said he was 7 years old. So our teachers are all around us, and to know that the season and that plant, if you're out, if that's your thing, out there doing it, the fish, if it's spear fishing, they're going to teach you, watching them, observing them, and just sitting with them. So our teachers came from all over. This is based on land-based learning, and it was a teacher from Manitoba, it's, I believe the schooling that they did, the land-based, was in Manitoba, and the teacher was from Saskatchewan. She said there was a high percentage of students that were suicidal and gearing up for gang life. The land-based grade had improved attendance and had so many benefits on the kids. The following year, I was afraid they would not be ready for high school math, but get this, they all came back to school in the fall and wanted to be there. They wanted to succeed. That's that is different than having low attendance in high school and coaxing the kids to be there. She went on with me and shared, and this was just a couple years ago, about it. They only got, I think it was about 2 weeks at the end of the school year with them. And then summer vacation came, and they thought for sure a lot of these kids would be in prison for life. None of them would show up because they didn't get enough time with them. They had the highest risks in every aspect you can think of, and many would be dead. And the teachers were trying to hold back tears every year when the school year started, not knowing which kids' faces they were going to see or not. And to their surprise, trying this land-based learning, and only getting a couple weeks with them, when the school year started back up, every single one of the kids were there, showed up on their own accord, excited to learn. A lot of them either got out of the gangs or that were thinking about joining gangs, decided not to. Some of them even became sober. So they had quite a success. Her story went on. And so here, I'm gonna see if I can figure this out for you guys. I'm trying to remember. Can you probably not see in the notes, Steve? Where will it let me fast forward? Pause. Yep. Let's see. I think it was. Trying to remember the time.
Okay, should have audio too, so let's make sure
Yes.
you guys can hear this. This is a great little clip, by the way.
This whole video is wonderful. It was hard to choose a spot to share with you. This is a tribe out in the East Coast or West Coast somewhere, and I've never heard of them, but I stumbled upon this video and I thought how wonderful that they were experiencing so such similarities in crafting as we do as well. The medicines in it, the therapy in it. And so I put the video at the bottom of this presentation, so you're welcome to watch the whole video. And here I will share a little bit of this clip with you.
Give that a break.
So I felt lots of things. I felt happy at times. I felt sad. I felt just frustrated at times with my hat. But I listened to Maria and I asked the cedar to help me. And every time I got frustrated, I'd just go for a walk. So I remember one morning, I think I must have went for 7 walks, just up and down the hallway. Probably every row I had to go for a walk because it was making me emotional. But at the end of it all, I learned about myself that I am an emotional person, but it's okay and that I can work through it. So when I learned that through cedar.
I do cedar weaving workshops in the community quite often, and everybody is always very grateful for the things that they learned throughout that process. There's quite a few weavers now in this territory.
So I just want to share that little clip with you. That whole video is really, really good. See how I can minimize it.
It's growing and it's coming back.
There we go. So some ways to find your traditional culture if they feel it's lost. I have looked over museum photos, Smithsonian, local. My tribe happens to spread across Canada and the United States. So there's so many museums that have absorbed many of our items. It's kind of heartbreaking to see them in prison there, but I am grateful I have access to take a peek at the different crafts. And there's old stories also that the museum have. The universities have them as well. Look at the dates and the eras of impact, and that might have caused the changes to that craft that you're looking into. True versus traditional. There's some pretty modern pieces that they have. So look at your people's history and think about that. It does help you think about that trauma that you don't even sometimes realize you have feelings about. That happened to your great or great grandma, grandpa, and so on. When you're looking at the changes and you start to notice your crafts changes. over time. It's not always bad though. It's been exciting at times too. So think about what was used as you're looking at it, what could have been used. This is a part of our 7th generation. It's for us to learn and bring back. So you're not expected to know it all. Don't put that on yourself. This is the exciting part, to talk with each other and say, hey, what do you think this is? Is this moose hide? Is this cedar? Or what is this here? Is this weegub? Or, what is this here? So, and then so also there's many resources, like I said, online, your tribal, cultural, and historical centers and universities, as I said, even some of the churches. Unfortunately for me, because being traditional and my dad being residential school survivor, it is hard for me to go to those churches and ask, but do have some of our items or stories. A lot of their the monks and whatnot from the churches, the elders used to call them the brown robes and the black robes, and the brown robes tended to do a lot of documenting of our stories. They changed some of the languages. They were changing it over into English. So things like squaw or brave, wild beast for wolf. So retranslate that back, and that way you don't have that ill connection as you're reading it. But they do have a lot of our stuff. And, so give a call to your local churches or ask the elders around. If you have elders, great. What churches are the oldest ones in the area? Those might be the ones that has it. And so piece together the creation stories along with other stories and teachings, the uses of animal and plant, tree, rock, materials you can find, if true or not culturally, does it fit in the circles of its teachings or stories? So it helps you learn to find truth. It helps you learn this critical teaching skills, and it also helps you to question things and be okay with that. That was taught to us in residential schools, not to question, just obey. We questioned everything that fed our inner child. It is good to wonder, and but to stay humble through it, not get cocky, not get arrogant, not get, I know something, no, you don't know, or, so to help work with them on that, because we often have wounded egos, many of us, in different aspects. So again, it's a part of the healing. It's a part of that, and recognizing that in self and keeping humble in that, with that good heart. And where is it coming from? Keep giving thanks. This came from spirit. This came from this place. And I got this from that, and together. So keep giving your thanks to where it came from. Here is some links and resources. I just put a few on here, but so you can get the general idea. This one is through, I believe it was a university, and it has from craft tools to hats to baskets to arrows to the bows, and it's all different eras on there. This one has all of these, I believe, links I'm putting here. You can, on the search part, put in your tribe, and it'll have your tribes, whatever you're looking for on there: medicines, crafts, foods, etc. on this database. Tree usages, the tools, the foods, medicines on this database. So it has where you could put your tribe in specific, and it will come up with some wonderful stuff for you. You will be overwhelmed. It's great. And the art of woodland floral stories, patterns, rattles, games, sports. These are all crafts. Our songs are so important. Our sounds are so important. Our sounds have changed to yelling and screaming in our communities, cries, frustration, exhaustion. So to get these back, to make that rattle. This one here, learning the stories of the colors and why and how to draw, weave, quill, carve, and paint. There's so many aspects of our crafts. So male, female, any age, any disability. Ojibwe art study, floral designs. This is rattles of one style. This is just a start. And this was a Cree up in Canada. And this is a video on how to make a rattle. And he does a great job sharing some of the stories on it. And you can also, if you're a therapist, observe the group that was learning. It's a youth group on the video. and observe the changes throughout. And you'll kind of be a little braced for what you probably already know you're going to be dealing with. So you can be steps ahead. And like our elders who were always steps ahead, they had stuff up their sleeve and ready for it. So there were many sports and games the tribes played, taught teamwork. Yet also independence is one practice or trained to develop a skill. So it is just, it's a way of life. It's a process. Remind them that. And the learning process is the fun part. Looking back and going, oh my gosh. And then knowing, looking forward, how much more do I get to learn? That's the thing, get to learn about it. And our skills, our crafts, and the lessons may develop, they may change over time. To be open to that growth in self. So there is many stories left behind. And so to find those, the purposes for, and the course, the endorphins that they get is healing. It promotes sobriety, especially with the games. This video here is got, it's northern tribes doing the sports and competing against each other. Even the elders want to get in on it. It's a great video, fun to watch, but you can see how people in your community, and I've said it here where I'm at, if I was outside just giving it a try, like doing the high kick or something with my traditional spouse, how many people of all ages would be slowly driving by, getting just noisy, and how many kids would start lingering, and we would have a team in no time. So, hey, yeah, come in and join us, but we want you sober for this. And we don't want you sweating no drugs or alcohol. So you need to be sober for a good handful of days. And yeah, we're going to really rock this tomorrow. So I hope you rest well tonight. And so they start to develop this, it really will change if we start to bring these back. So if they say we don't have this in the community, get out there and do it in your yard and watch how quickly you will. So land-based resources, this is more about the land-based learning. From what I am shown with land-based learning, we need therapists out there. We need AODA counselors out there. We need everybody in all aspects, because as they're learning, things are coming out. This is a skill. So it's a great opportunity as the kids are kind of deflecting and other things are showing up to help work with them on developing skills. Because if you did an assessment at where we're at developmentally in a lot of ways, you're going to see they need a lot of skills in different ways of responding, focusing, dealing, dieting choices, healthy choices, relationship choices, mentorship. You might even find some in a really great way and be able to catch them, like our elders would see the things that you excelled at, and kind of pull them off to the side, because people can tend to get jealous, and say something about, did you ever think about? And if you ever need some help in something you're looking to be a part of, maybe you want to be a mentor or a counselor or a teacher, or you're great at that, just let me know. I'll see how I can help you find some resources. So to be observing those really good skills as well. But hopefully not accidentally put them on the wrong path that's not intended for them. So just to open that doorway, plant that seed, and let them know you are there. And so there's a way for them to become successful in something they just got a knack for and enjoy. And you can let them know that, this might not be something you do for the rest of your life, but you'd rock at it until you figure out what you want to do. And so it's a good start. Here's with this land-based learning, there's all kinds of resources here, from the programming ideas to entire programming written up, and the success and all of that information you may need to get that going, or pass down to somebody in your community so they can get that going. And it's just the beginning of resources. There's a ton out there. Here's some statistics and articles on cultural-based healing therapies. This one here says the inclusion of family and community and treatment plans decreases the isolation often found in allopathic care, and thinking about the lack of person-environment harmony and balance may important clues for the diagnostic process. So you're able to find things about them as well as you're observing them that somebody else may not have caught. So why is whatever it is that you've been working on with them is not getting anywhere? Well, you didn't realize this little seed, and you wouldn't have seen that unless you had a chance to observe them in this setting. Utilize the arts for healing from a Native American perspective. So here is, like I said, a lot more resources. This is from NIH. So these are some really good resources. Here it talks about it's also helpful for Native American people to have something. I'm checking the time here. Has something to do with their hands. And we were constantly busy as a people. That is in our innate genetics. We were always out in that air, out in that sun, moving about. So what we're lacking, vitamin D, these endorphins, that connection with earth, that grounding time, all of this, the different, how your breathing changes. So all of this really changes mental health and including physical health. So as this here begins to go on, it talks about the journey stick and what they had used. So it's these are all resources that you're welcome to utilize here later. And here's some funding and other resources as well. So there's a bit out there, but this is just a start to get you going. You know, when you're doing the search, it'll help maybe pop up more searches as well. Native Arts and Culture Foundation, Indigenous Healing Arts Alliance. So you can see also this has been going on in other places and they're seeing success enough to get funders for it. And this here is a Native Resource Guide. So it's federal resources for Native arts and cultural activities. So if it's a program you want to develop and build to get going, again, I would try your best to make it as humble as you can. Carpool, teaching them these independent skills. We have managed to find a ride to go to the Walmart in town. And it might be once a month, but help them to try to find that ride to do this on their own. So eventually when they don't need or aren't going to continue coming to the group or the one-on-one, they can continue this in their life later. So, but if not, if they need a ride, you know, if you'll be able to maybe get a van going, something like that. But that initiative portion where they need to come out a little bit and meet you part of the way, at least that investment that they put into it, it puts that energy and puts that spirit into, okay, I'm doing this, I'm a part of this, I'm here, I'm present. So to remember that it's not really tough love, it just is the ways, you know. So there's ways to get this going in your community, even in the city. You can do once a season, you know, going up, everybody camps out, you know, make a backup plan if you have to go up to the woods, go up to your ceded territories to gather, you know, things like that. So you can have it at your community center, your any community center, Chicago, Milwaukee, Minneapolis, whatever it is, Duluth. And this way you can offer this seasonally. And start developing it. And then I would be talking with whether it's a museum, their social services, family services, and other resources around those reserves, saying, could you guys send a van? Do you have funding for this? Or we have funding, we'll pay for the gas, you have the van, come down here and pick up our youth or our elderly for their elderly program and bring them up, so you can arrange it a little bit more often. But there's always ways to make this work. And that was our ways. We came together. So to become independent, find ways where we are all invested in case the funding dwindles out. And it can continue going on. They don't have to worry, hey, we're going to find a way to make this keep going. So, because too often we see something start and then it just fizzes out fast. And then here's the video, that story of cedar and the hat weaving and birch bark pulling, or bark pulling. And this one here is the traditional canoe, helps build the sogging, or helps the sogging youth connect with the ancestral ways. So this one here is an article, and it kind of goes into, again, the success, some of the things that the kids realized, and so on and so forth. So I hope you will find that of interest and it helps you out. If there's any way I can help later, if a question comes later, an idea or barrier comes later, you just hit a wall going, oh man, here's my email. It'll be in the PDF version Steve makes for you guys. If you request it from him, I'll send it to you. That's my phone number, and I am in northern Wisconsin. But feel free to call or email, and I'll try to help you brainstorm. You know, we don't have all the answers, but together we can figure it out. So yeah, I know from what I've learned through crafting and walking our ways, dealing with the different aspects of what our people deal with over the years, there is always a way. There's always a way. It doesn't usually, sometimes it don't come like that, but there is always a way. So feel free to holler and we'll figure it out. And if I, don't know myself, I'm sure I know somebody that would know or have some direction. We'll connect and bridge, and that's what we're supposed to do in these times. So it's good. If you guys have any questions or comments, feel free to begin. I know Steve might have been monitoring that chat for me. I'm not good at doing the multitasking. I try to stay in spirit when I'm talking. So, but if there is questions or comments, feel free to put on your mic and open it up.
Yes, let's open the floor. If anyone would like to comment or have a question or comment, please. We have some time, so this is wonderful.
Liosam Chimanyabu, everyone. Hi, my name's Isaac. I was gonna ask, those links that you had, are they gonna be available in like an email or something?
Yes, they're all that if you saw all those slides on the PowerPoint, Steve Stein will put into a PDF version and he can email it to you. Just let him know. And all those links will be in there. All those videos and resources are right there, and my information's there.
Okay, thank you. So I just email Steve Stein.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
You'll be contacted, Isaac. We'll reach out to you because you've registered for this event. We'll reach out to you. So you're going to get an email from us with everything you need to access this presentation. You can request some CEUs, and we're happy to do that. And there'll be a recording of this event as well available. And I'll post our YouTube Native Center for Behavioral Health archive. It's not a searchable function on the open YouTube. You have to go into this website to access it. But I'll put that in the chat too. It's got a lot of past presentations. This one will be posted there within a few days.
Okay, thank you so much. I appreciate that a lot.
I see Melanie had wrote on here that she coached the Native Games of the North. How exciting. If you are, I'd like to share some of the growth you saw and the positivity in that. If there's any other questions or comments. Melanie says her kids found they were able to participate in the sport, set their own goals, and help each other achieve them. I think
watched, yes, Teresa had sent me the link to that, the Northern Games documentary, and there was one section where there was this toe walking competition where they would have done this to avoid getting frostbite on their feet, and It was how far could a person walk on the knuckles of their toes. I couldn't believe it. I was very impressed. I didn't even attempt to do that. It was wild. It was really amazing.
One is asking here about crafting with folks, with the youth, if they're grieving. And for me, when I was grieving my father, I put a lot of crafts down. I regret doing that later. I think I should have picked it up, but I would be selective on what it is you're feeling to make. Maybe it's going to be a gift for that person you're grieving for. And that way they can focus on that love for them, those good memories, and work through the grief. And depending on your tribe, would they want to put that in a fire, put it in the river, put it over by where their spirit host is? That would be on you, or if you're non-native or not traditional, for them to talk to their elder or just talk to spirit to try to learn to trust self and help them to trust self. And on what's the best thing to do with that item that they're doing. A sport, when it comes to sport, if that's their craft and grieving, or the warrior society type training. To me, I believe with the warrior society training, when our men were grieving, they went into ceremony. From the stories I know, they helped them to let go of that spirit that was attached. So they need that time and that medicine to go through that, and before they come back in. I think neurologically, what is that instilling? If they're still out there trading and playing the games, and that state isn't good. So definitely to take that time to let go of that connection to that spirit and make peace with self before they get back into that training. In our ways, you had the 4 days till the spirit, the individual, crosses over, but you have the Anishinaabic year, which is 13 moon cycles. Until this is enough now, no more mourning. So to tell them and let them know whatever your tribe's way is, it may be that, which is close to a year. Our 13 moons is just slightly over a 12-month calendar year. To let them know, take this year to work on self and to remember the love, and just to have all those great lessons of that life and death, and how we work through, or whatever it is they're needing at that point, right? Where they're at, to assess that. But otherwise, yes, if it's some sort of crafting, I would tell them, go for it, make something for them. It's what I wish I would have done for my father. Maybe it would have been something I ended up keeping or given to a relative that was mourning him harder than me, but to work with spirit on what to do with that item. And we've got to learn to trust spirit. I think from my experience in life and with other elders, we're going to make a million mistakes a day, especially since we're the 7th generation, bringing a lot back. If we are doing this pure of heart, pure of mind, pure of spirit, coming about it in a good way, and working with spirit throughout, and we make a mistake, spirit sees. We don't come from a spiteful, smiteful God, so just to know it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. And learn our mistakes. Awesome. You got to learn more now. It's okay. So to work through it that way. If it's harvesting food, and that's their craft, maybe it's wild racing or fishing, I would talk with them about cleansing them, because they're going to the water there, and seeing if they can learn, are you okay with putting your grief down momentarily, but you need to pick it back up. You need to work through these things. Because we would have starved. How many times did our people, when you think about historically and learn from our old ones, how many times did our people lose many people at one time? We had Sandy Lake Massacre, we had our forms of Trails of Tears, and they brought us up to Turtle Mountain. My family was up by kind of by Sault Ste. Marie, Spanish River area, Ontario, and we got sent down to Mississauga, the Credit. kind of near Toronto. So we all went through these things and lost many people along the way. And what happened? We couldn't not eat. We had to harvest, we had to fish, we had to continue on with life. So to think about those old ones, but they did not deny their grief. And they did face and work through. And how do they think they work through that? And help them to learn to find this on their own, trust spirit. But if you know some of those teachings and they're stumbling on it, you know to work with spirit then in what spirit tells you to go ahead and share. You know, and to help seed that. So, you know, that's what I would do. Sometimes we got to fish, but if there's enough fishing for your family, take that time to sit in your grief and work through it. So I don't know. I hope that answers your question. She says, I'm going to be working with students who have lost someone from suicide. And I'd like to use crafting as we remember them and help them process through their grieving. Yeah, and with grieving, you can start with coloring or painting, do mass ceremony. Yes. And that too, we did, some of the tribes did do that. I know because my reserve is near 6 nations. And they have some of the tribes within that, actually 5 nations, do stuff like that in the longhouse. So to me with suicide, we really didn't have that, you know, in our teachings. It's a new issue. But I think about loss, sudden loss, unexpected loss is to me how I would compare that. And a loss that's of injustice. Why suicide? Were they bullied to that point? You know, and so how can we talk on that love and lift them up? How can we, you know, not to teach them to become a caretaker or enabler. It's a fine line to walk there, you know, to let go, we're not responsible, but to be in that healing way. And I would think about that family who is suffering most. I know our people were loving people. We were unconditionally loving people. And so whenever we had loss, we noticed and we knew each other in the family who was suffering the hardest. Can we send these crafts to them? Would it bring and help their healing and show that support and thought of them and prayers for them to learn to pray for each other and think of each other and not get caught in grief, in suicide? Because I know, you know, they some say, and it's hard for me to, some say suicide is selfish, and I have a hard time with that. Because I've known too many that commit suicide and the suffering they endured. So I have a hard time with that. And some say that the grief and grieving in for those who committed suicide is also selfish, to get caught in the trap of what they were in that cycle. I do see some truth in a cycle of helplessness and despair and connecting to that spiritually, emotionally, mentally, and that cycle. And then we end up having more suicides, right? But we do need to feel that is hurtful and sad. And, you know, I lost my own niece to that, you know, an uncle to that. And, you know, so it's devastating. Yes, and that's true. And we should feel that. But the balance, the other end, the love and the lessons. What would our elders do? You know, they would have stopped everything and been counseling on that. Take that serious. When a beautiful young one or adult or even elder takes their life, it is time to have counsel with each other and go, what the heck is going on here, and take stock. What is the lesson and what can we do to fix and make this change? This death will no longer be for nothing, and help give that individual their peace. But we can't be taken off of our paths either. We need to walk our path. We cannot devote our life to that. So learning the balance. And if you have a community where you have high suicide rates with your youth, it's important for them to learn that balance and not be taken off their path, off their craft, off their vision and their skills. You know, this is just an aspect to it today, sadly, but it is. And so how can we take the lessons and turn it around? So I hope that helps your question. I hope that answers it. But that's what I would do. Definitely, I would think of like our elders who suffer the most and who could use it. And even the upside, have them seek out if it's a youth or if it's elderly, if it's the vets, you know, where the suicide occurred, you know, because it isn't just our youth doing this. And there's all kinds of forms of suicide when you think about it, you know, eating too much and knowing you have diabetes, things like that. So to start to notice who do we see struggling around us, let's send our craft to them and our prayers with it. And let them know they're supported. Let them know they're thought of. Who's getting bullied, you know, and let them know they're supported and let them know they're thought of. So let's end this cycle of this if we can by this. This is the most and the least we can do. And if we can think of more, let's think on it together. Let's think on it together so it doesn't take us off our paths and figure this out, you know. Is there any other questions or comments?
We've had a lot of appreciation, a lot of thank yous, and a lot of acknowledgements about this presentation, Teresa. So it's been very, very good. And I want to thank you again for taking the time to share your knowledge with us. And it's a lot. There's a lot of information.
I think I missed one of my slides on there. I was making a pine needle basket, you know, I don't cut like this, eh? And I had made learning it, not this one, but the pictures in there, and it had like every mistake just about possible in it. But with life and, you know, the interconnectedness of Indigenous ways, everything's interconnected. If you work with your mistakes and keep working at the basket in the picture, it ended up turning out. And, you know, it's our pine needle baskets, if your stitches are tight enough, they actually could hold water, right? So one of my mistakes caused like the cracking in it. And so it couldn't hold water. It had just the tiniest hole that was just big enough, but it could hold the berries, nuts, whatever, your car keys, I guess. And so sometimes our mistakes, yes, changes things permanently. It doesn't work out exactly as we wanted it to, and use, you know, so all these kind of things that come, right? The lessons and working with it, it still turned out. And I got to say, beautifully, I loved it. I love the smell of it. My cousin is stealing it. I said, it's my teaching basket. He said, I want it. I was like, okay. There's another basket in there I have that is red willow, that Winnebuju willow or Nanabush, and the cattails. And so I ran out of cattails. I needed to keep going on the basket, and so I went and got some Winnebuju willow because it was handy. And the cattails, you know, you got to wait for them. If you don't get them in season at the right time, you got to wait for them to dry, and then you can soak them, or else they'll just crack on you. And so I wanted to keep going for the basket dried out because I was so tightly weaved on the bottom to soak it, it would start rotting, right? And so I went and got the Winnebuju willow and got it going. Winnebuju willow is really, really finicky, kind of like birch. It has such a personality of its own, such a spirit, of course, because whose willow is it? Whose blood did it come from? And so it taught me what it wanted to be and how it wanted to work. And otherwise it was going to break my basket. And so again, you have to be reminded of the foundations, but in life too, it doesn't work out how you want it to work out. Yes, I wanted it to be on a basket, and that's about the gist of it, if you think about it. And then I could add to it when the cattails dried and finish it up. But it had to come up so far in the basket where it was okay if the basket dried overnight, and then I could get back to it. I kind of had a vision in my head of how I wanted it to go, but I got my end. It was on the basket. It held up my basket, and it got its end. So spirit had to meet, it had to do its job, you know, and I had to do mine, and I had to let go and work with it. And it turned out, I thought, amazing. you know, and you'll know as you work with your craft spirit going, let this go, leave this hanging, don't cut this off, or whatever it is. And you don't have to know. You'll learn also, I don't have to know everything and right now. So you learn to let yourself be pleasantly surprised at the end, you know, and see how it comes together. And that's so exciting. It's humbling. It's really humbling. And then it gets you excited for what next, what next. So it's fun. It's fun. It's fun to catch yourself and go, oh my gosh, my thinking was going off. We're not exempt from anything. You see that we are all equal. No one's greater than another. And my Menominee grandpa on my mom's side, he used to say, when you stop learning, you stop living. And we can die in many ways, including our spirit die, you know? And so to let yourself know, the more you know nothing. Keep being that student at your craft and just share. Just share when you're ready to. I teach not to sell or put a price on your craft. That's what we learned with our people, that the creator said not to do that or you'll lose your gift. And I believe firmly when you sell or put a price on, if you think about the spirit and the broadness of thought and where your heart's going and all that comes when you're envisioning, thinking, being a part of, hands-on, any portion of your craft or skill, games, anything, you'll notice how your mind is so open and you're able to connect. But the second you start thinking, I could sell this for this much, who wants that? Is this good enough for sale? You go into this narrow-based thinking, and the connectivity to and that flow that was happening is gone. So what kind of gifts is creator talking about he was giving us and that you're going to lose? So that's where the blessings are. That's what we're blessed for, not how good you are at it, not that you're the best of all the people and check you out. It's that beautiful thoughtfulness that creator gave us and the space it puts us in, the plants or whatever you have in your hand, the medicine of that lacrosse stick or the women's stick games, you know, the sisterhood that occurs and your strive now and your will now, and you know, the health that's turning around, all the different gifts that come just from creator's thought. He, you know, and took people out to different places of our homelands, you know, when you're going out to the waterfalls, to, you know, lookout areas, and you start to notice, go to the different season, how much creator thought of us in every season, from color to smell to usage, how blessed we are. The cattail alone, from food to and energy food. I mean, it is a high starchy food, really high. So it's a high energy food. So for our sports folks, get them some cattail root. It's high carbs, but good carbs. You know, it can be used in so many ways. The powder from the pollen on it, we use as a flour, high in nutrients. So we can start to get rid of our soldier fort rations. Ask those that have that cooking gift and learning the recipes and learning to preserve. Would you be willing to figure this out and rock this in a recipe, keep working with that, you know, because the nutrients. So we start to turn our diabetes around and our heart disease, our mental illness a lot. If you notice what dairy does to us, immediately the different responses. I learned that with my daughters getting food allergy testing. They had told us, the nurse out flat, that they will respond one of two ways, extremely emotional or grumpy pissed. And she got both ways. Just from that little exposure to the dairy. So we think just because we're not getting super constipated or diarrhea that we can have dairy, but as a native people, we lack that gene to digest it. So how many misdiagnoses of mental health, short fuse, you know, anger management, things like that, or do we have going on or attention deficit when it might be diet based? So to try to find our cultural foods again, and you will find a lot of them in your crafts. Well, I'm going to let you guys get going on with your day. Thank you so much for joining and sharing. Again, if there's anything I can do to help or help you brainstorm, don't hesitate to holler.
Thank you so much, Teresa. Thank you everyone for joining us today. We'll see you next month. We'll broadcast another behavioral health webinar. I believe it's the third Wednesday of every month. So we'll see you again next month. Until then, stay safe, stay connected, and stay healthy. Tokcha.
Pamapi.